at all of us together.
Promoter.
This is so great. I love it. All right. Welcome to Real Talk with Beckie and Angie. Today, we are so excited to have April Roberts in the podcast room with us. Welcome, April. April is an entrepreneur, author, financial industry genius, former corporate lawyer, and seeker who has spent decades helping others transform so they can live their best lives. Today, we're going to talk about topics like decision fatigue, your feminine essence, and why at the Vixen Mastermind, they don't use the words, I'm sorry. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm intrigued.
Yes. Welcome, April. Hey, everyone. This is Beckie.
And I'm Angie.
And welcome to Real Talk with Beckie and Angie. All right. Where are you in the United States?
I'm so excited to be here. I am in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nice. I love Nashville. I love Nashville.
April, I would like for you to meet my friend Angie. Angie and I met. We have this. We had the disagreement of where we actually met. We met when we were in junior high. I believe it was in Mr. Estep's class, or I can't remember what it was, like a history class or something. Anyway, we used to get into our fair share of trouble back in junior high and high school.
A little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. And we've had a lot of fun. And over the years, we've had an in and out relationship. And right now, in my opinion, we're at the best phase of our friendship. I think it's because we're both in a great place in our lives. So having you come in and be our very first guest for our show is so exciting. So yes, Angie,
I'm honored.
This is April.
Thank you.
Hi, April. I'm Angie. Nice to meet you. I hear great things about you. Beckie is so excited to have you. So I am here for all the support. So I'm going to turn it over to you,
so
ladies.
Nice to meet you.
You as well. And I'm going to jump in little bits here and there. But you know what, Beckie, you guys I heard you had an amazing weekend together. So I'm going to turn it over to you, ladies. And I'm just going to kind of sit back. I'm going to be like a fly on the wall. I'm going to drink my tea.
Yeah.
Listen.
What's in there? Yeah, the cheers, the tea. Yes. Okay.
Well, here, Beckie.
I had okay, there we go. We need to get April one there.
Yes.
I know.
Cheers. Yeah. Do you have your own?
Get my water up.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Welcome, April. I got the great pleasure of spending the weekend in Park City, Utah with you and 6 other lovely ladies, Vixens, as you call them, at your Vixen Gathering Mastermind.
Yep.
So what we did all kinds of amazing exercises. We had phenomenal food. Last night, I'm like, where are the people bringing in my food? Like, do I have to actually cook my own dinner? I mean, I got spoiled. You brought these women together. We had an amazing time. And what was like, how did you come up with this Vixen Mastermind? Like, what's behind it? What's the heart of it? Share. I'd love to hear.
Well, thanks for asking. And I'm glad you were spoiled. So my job is done. Thank you. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. Gosh, the story starts in 2020. I will try to give you the short version, but I had a financial planning practice that I started. Well, I started in the industry in 2008 and opened my own office in 2010. So I am very familiar with the entrepreneur roller coaster, as we like to call it. And around 2020, it really started 2017. I started getting a vision that I should be doing something different, even though I had this thriving financial practice and all these clients that depended on me, who depended on me. And I was just like, okay. And then it came up again in 2019. And then, we get signs to do something. And I've learned that when you don't listen to the signs or the whispers, then you get whacked upside the head, right? And so April 2020, I got my third sign. And I just remember looking up and going, really? Right now? You want me to do this right now? And I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was supposed to make impact in a different way than I was doing. And so I did something that was foreign to me. I asked for help and I reached out to connections and I said, hey, I kind of had this vision. I was supposed to be in stages, talking to people, just spreading word. And I said, hey, do you know anyone that can help me get on stages? Now, keep in mind, this is 2020, right? There are no stages to be on. And then I was like, hey, and that other woman that's in our mastermind, because I was in Darren Hardy's mastermind, elite mastermind at the time, could you connect me with her? And I just started asking favors of people. And I had never done this in my life. I really believe you give value. And then when they offer the favor, you say yes. And so that led to like a beautiful year of having these conversations with a number of female entrepreneurs. And we were kind of going through the same thing. It was like, okay, to be successful, in our age group, you had to be one of the guys growing up. I mean, I was a lawyer and then a financial advisor. And then 2020 things changed. And I think collectively, a lot of we female entrepreneurs said, we don't want to play by these rules anymore. We want to do it our way. So that quickly became my mission. How can I go out there and, bring communities together and assist women entrepreneurs in being more feminine at work, doing things their way, not having to be part of the boys club, etc. And so here we are today.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot in a very,
Sorry,
you packed a lot in there from everything from, so just so I clarify for me, you come from a financial advisor background, but you were also a corporate attorney?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm impressed. I love, talk about an impressive resume. You were a corporate attorney. That's a very masculine atmosphere.
Yeah, I was a litigator to make things worse, so that's even more masculine.
Wow. How did it feel to be in that atmosphere?
I did not, again, that's what you knew, right? And so, I mean, I remember we had to wear skirts, we had to wear pantyhose, you had to have your toes covered. It was like a big deal because they let us wear slingback shoes. So we didn't have to have the full covered shoe. I mean, this was very old school, like high powered law firm. So that was really interesting, but I don't know, it didn't bother me at the time. But what happened was, as the younger female attorneys, came up, well, at least on my team, what I saw was a pattern of the head partner picking them off one by one because they assumed you were going to get married and have kids. And in their mind, you couldn't juggle being a litigator with having kids, right? Because the hours were insane. And so it's kind of like early on, you had to decide if you wanted to go of counsel route or leave. In fact, there was only one female partner on our entire team of 50 lawyers. So 2 years in, I got a review and it was almost like he was making up things for my review. I'd never had a bad thing. And I was just like, he has wind that I'm dating someone and this is my time to be picked off. Like my intuition just knew. So I just went and got another job. I was gone in 2 weeks. I was like, I'm not going to deal with this. But I mean, other than that, I didn't really, until that moment, like I said, it was just like you were part of the boys club, but it was a boys club for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And so it sounds like later on you look back and you're like, okay, that's masculine energy, feminine energy. You had some kind of awareness or something along the way that made you realize the difference.
Yeah. And, sometimes when you're in the middle, you don't realize. I remember it was Easter weekend and I was in Atlanta, my parents were in Mississippi, and my mom drove up there to spend the weekend with me because I had too much work to go home. And I could not get out of the office to see my mom. And I just remember crying. And you had to hide if you're crying, of course, right? Because you're frustrated. And so definitely the grind culture was very masculine. A lot of what goes on. And And it's interesting because, Beckie and I talked about this weekend. I feel like my 18-year-old self was like courageous and vivacious and feminine and much wiser than like in my 20s and 30s. I think you go through this period where you have responsibility and you're trying to figure it out. So, Angie, you're right. I feel like I've circled back to realize, hey, this isn't how I want to live my life, right? I want to live my life and show up a little differently. If my mom drives up for Easter, I want to make darn well that make sure that I have time to see her. And just different things are important.
Different priorities.
Yeah.
Priorities. Okay. Beckie, I'm going to hand it back to you.
I'm so glad that you jumped in, Angie. Thank you. I was kind of mesmerized. I spent an entire weekend with April in this environment and yet didn't really get all these like condensed version of April of your background. It's really amazing. And if I were a viewer right now, these are the questions I would be asking. One, what state were you in? And what year was it that you were wearing pantyhose and had to have your toes covered and you had to wear a skirt?
It was Atlanta, Georgia, 2001 to 2003.
Wow. So as I shared over the weekend, I was in Mary Kay for a long time, but 10 years ago or something, 8 years ago. And those were the requirements. We were supposed to wear pantyhose, a skirt, shoes that covered your toes during the time though, we got to wear slingbacks. And so I remember going, oh, we get to wear slingbacks? Like how exciting that was. And almost like you were kind of living on the edge when you were wearing something that felt so, like I'm showing some skin here. So it's just so interesting. Okay. So it was then. And when you left there, when you looked back, what did you see? Like, what did you see behind you?
Well, I don't really believe in regrets. I believe when we look back at our life, everything has happened to lead us to the moment we're at. So I actually really appreciated my time there. Another reason I left is just, our clients were big corporations and we were defending them. And while what they were doing was legal, I can't say I always agreed with what they were doing, right? I mean, everything was legal. That's why we were defending them. But, just large, I can't talk too much because of confidentiality, obviously. But, just when I kind of saw some things, it gave me, a great glimpse of the world at 22 that I think that some people never have, let's just say, right? Like pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, etc., how they operate. And so at some part, I remember going home one day and just getting on the phone with my mom and crying and going, I can't do this job. So kind of that combined with being about to be picked off. But like intellectually, I love the work. I love the people I worked with. I worked for the largest law firm in town. So I had a lot of connections, a lot of opportunities to do things. So I think my 22-year-old self still enjoyed those experiences. And I also, looking back, I'm very grateful that I either had that foresight or, I don't know, wisdom or experience that young so that I didn't really get roped into corporate America. Let's just say it, because it's just not my style, right? I'm a rebel. I wouldn't have done well for long having to play by the rules. I like to be freer than that. And I think, I had that lesson at 25, and I think a lot of people have that lesson so much later. So I'm honestly grateful for that.
And so then you're driving away and you're looking ahead and your future. What nuggets going into the next phase of your life? Tell us about that.
So I ended up going to work for a law firm right next door. So interviewing was very interesting. I remember going home, changing, interviewing, going back home and coming back. That was interesting. At the time, I was also engaged and getting married. So there was a lot going on. And I think, Beckie, you know this, my ex-husband is Italian, not American. So that was very complicated. So I don't know that I really had time to stop and reflect, to be honest. I literally quit the first job, got married on the week Friday, and started the next job on Monday. Like, that's how crazy it was. And we moved into a new apartment, I think the weekend before or the weekend after. So, um, I was, let's just say at the time, no, I was 27. I was 27 at the time. I don't know that you reflect a lot. It's just like, okay, here's what's going on. I'm excited about this, not excited about this. I'm moving on.
And you said, at what point did you move to Italy? Because you lived in Italy for a while.
Yeah. So I went to the new firm, and this was interesting. Looking back, I'm like, wow, that's amazing that I was able to make that decision, because I don't know if you women have experienced this, but the older we get and the more responsibility we have, sometimes it's hard to make the right decision for ourselves and our personal lives. And that's a lot of what we talk about in Vixen. Like, what do you really want? Who are you really? And are the decisions you making aligning with that core self? But basically what happened was we started the immigration process, and it was very convoluted back then. I don't know if it's easier now, but there was a period of time we got married and he could not leave the United States for, X months. Well, his grandfather, who was 95, and the person he was closest to in the world, went into the hospital, and it was pretty apparent he was not coming out. And he couldn't come visit. And I just remember sitting in the attorney's office, like looking at my husband, who I love very much. I get emotional to this day, just like crumble before me when he heard that. And I just said, well, I guess we're moving to Italy. So didn't know how we were doing it, but that was the answer. So he left so that he could see his grandfather as soon as possible. And I stayed to, I gave my office an month's notice, because as a litigator, you have a lot going on. Cleaned up my cases, sold everything we owned. He was in Italy looking for our new home and preparing our life there. So that was not fun as a newlywed, I can tell you that. I remember every night I moved the TV into the bedroom, and I just ate popcorn every night and watched TV, and I worked till 10 p.m. because it was not fun coming home to our empty apartment that, we had gotten together.
You just mentioned you had a financial advisor company. So I want to know a little bit more about that as well.
Sure. So I went to Italy. First time we were there a year and a half. So the interesting thing is, your American law degree is not valid in Europe, so I couldn't practice law. And I applied to a number of law firms to be like the European equivalent of a paralegal or an assistant. I mean, I was just like, okay, let me get into a law firm. I can show them what I can do. And they would not hire me because they said I was overqualified. So my degree, I couldn't become a lawyer, but because I had the degree, they wouldn't hire me for any other job in the firm. So that was very frustrating, and getting a job, period, even though, I had a residency in Italy, was very difficult. I mean, looking back and knowing everything I know now, I was 27 at the time trying to deal with this, right? I mean, now I'm like, oh, I would have marketed this, this, and this, and we would have been good. But, I had just, at that point in my life, I had just been a lawyer. I didn't know anything about business, how to get business, how to do things. So I ended up teaching English to executives, lawyers, and professionals. That's what I did.
That's a neat pivot.
Yeah, except they paid me €12 an hour, and I was used to making six figures. Not so neat. So
And you did it all for love.
Exactly.
The language of love.
Yeah.
So that's what I ended up doing. And then my ex-husband, I did not know until we got married. Before he met me, had a cocaine issue, and he gave it up when he met me. But then when we moved to Italy, it started up again. And he's a beautiful, amazing person. And, I hate that he had that addiction. It really is. So that was interesting to go through. So anyway, I'm in Italy dealing with that, not able to have my career. And as Beckie knows me, I'm a very driven person. One thing I will tell you is my Italian friends were absolute angels. They were just like such blessings to me. going through all of this. And I did really love my ex-husband, and he loved me. So of course you give it a couple of tries. So I was there a year and a half. Then we moved back to the US for a year where I practiced law in New Orleans, and he got a job there. And our life was really beautiful in New Orleans. And then we made the mistake. He was like, hey, I really want to be the breadwinner, because same thing in the US, he had a challenge getting a good job just like I did in Europe, right? And I was early 30s and it was time for us to have kids, and we wanted to have kids. So I thought, okay, we'll go back. You can be the breadwinner. I knew I couldn't make a lot of money there. So I kind of was like, well, you better make a lot of money so I can run the household, right? Like I was like, we'll handle this. And he went back to work with his family. But unfortunately, as soon as we went back, he started using again. It was just something about being in Italy. When we were in the US, he was always fine over there. And so that last time I came home to visit my parents for 3 weeks, if you're familiar with Italy, the whole country shuts down the month of August, but my ex had to work. So, I'm basically in our apartment in the middle of Milan. All my friends are on vacation. All my clients are on vacation. And I was just like, yeah, no, I'm going to go home for a couple of weeks. I'll see you in September. And when it came time to get on the plane, I just mentally, physically, emotionally shut down. And my parents were like, you're not going back, because of, everything I was dealing with. And so again, I'll never forget that phone call when I told him I wasn't coming back. That was horrible. So I stayed in the US for 3 more months, and then I went back in December for our anniversary and Christmas. And I just understood, he said something to me one day, and I go, I need to get out of here. If I stay in this relationship, it will absolutely destroy me as a person. Like, I just understood it. So I went back to my parents, and I just would walk every day, because you find yourself like you just left everything behind and you don't know what to do next. And again, I just remember one day I looked up and I said, okay, I'm ready for it. Just send me what you have. And like within a week, I had like a great job. My brother was going to college, so I took over his mortgage and moved into his house, which helped him and helped me. I met someone, so it was just crazy. And I knew that was God telling me it was okay to, move on and go to the next phase of my life. Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So that's what
Sounds like
got me back from Italy.
Sounds like your parents have been very supportive all along.
Yeah, they're pretty great. Everyone has parental issues, so
no, not me.
I will say that.
Not me, not at all. Mom's not watching this. Not me. Becky, you're scot-free, Becky.
Yeah, I know. Mine are gone. Do your parents watch this, Angie?
I wouldn't know, and I wouldn't doubt it. Right?
Okay.
I don't know.
That's
if
so
she does.
funny.
She does. Hi, Mom. Love you.
Hi, Sherry.
So
Becky sends her love.
Anyway, and what are your parents' names? April. We'll say hi to them too.
Paul and Jolene. We'll say hi.
Hi, Paul and Jolette.
Hello.
Nice. Yeah, my parents were like, oh, when does your, because my podcast launches in a few weeks. When's that launch? We want to watch it. And I go, oh, I never thought about you guys watching this podcast.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was just kidding. It's a fail. No, look over there. Yeah. Well, so your podcast is launching when?
1st of August. First or second week of August. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to turn it back over. Becky, you were talking about how Vixen gatherings came to be. And so 2020, and let's jump back in there. Jump back in time.
Yeah, I heard you say that you met somebody and.
Yep. I went, which was a horrible relationship, but again, God put someone in my path to like make me move on, right? So after my marriage and that relationship, I was like, it's going to take a while for me to date again, but we learned how to do it. So my dad was a financial advisor, and I got a job working for an attorney out of New Orleans. We were in Biloxi, Mississippi, so it's like an hour from New Orleans. He had a big trial there and he wanted help. So I'm getting paid well just to go sit in court with him and give him my opinion and do research. So I was like, great way, obviously with my husband's, well, not obviously, but my husband's addiction had like obliterated our finances. So I left the divorce with like maybe $10,000 in my bank account when we had like, hundreds of thousands a few years before. And so I was like, oh, great. I'm getting money. I can do something. I'm moving on. And so then the gentleman got slow in paying me and he wanted me to like run an office for him. And I was just like, no, I didn't really want to be in a position where if I were managing his Mississippi firm, I'm chasing people to pay us, right? Because I didn't like not getting paid. That really bugged me. In the meantime, my father and I are very close, and he was a retirement planner, and he did dinner seminars, and his receptionist retired. So while he was waiting for someone new to come, I would go to his dinner seminars. So I'm practicing law by day, and I'd go to his dinner seminars, greet people, sign them in, set the appointments afterward. Like, I just thought it was fun. So I kind of stepped in to be his like assistant receptionist until he filled in. And I got to see what my dad did and how he brought joy to people because he helped them plan for retirement. And, as a litigator, I inherited problems and I had to go fight about the problems, right? So this idea of helping people plan for the future seems so much better to me. So long story short, I got licensed and ended up joining my dad. I was his intern for a year and a half. And then I knew I didn't want to stay in Mississippi. I'm just not really a small town girl. I had left, when I was 18. And so I moved to Houston and opened my financial practice in 2010. So I did that until March of 2023.
So you did that
There we go.
until just
Wow.
recently.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I sold my business in March. It was final.
Is that the one you sold to your brother?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay. Here I am. I'm in like awe just because you've taken so many bold actions. I mean, you went to law school, you moved to Italy. I mean, moving to a whole different country is like, I can't even imagine. And then going off on your own, working for your dad and doing all the things that you've done. I mean, I'm seriously like, wow, that's amazing. And
thank you.
And so you started the Vixen Mastermind, and tell us about that. How would you describe that?
I'd love to, but Beckie, if I could for a second, do you remember a moment this weekend when someone asked me, don't you remember when you learned to get out of fear? How long did that take? And I said, well, one of my blessings is that I don't have fear. So now you can see that with my story, right? And I mean, because I'm very grateful for that. And obviously it's a gift from God, in my opinion. And so part of the Vixen Mastermind is me helping other women to go through fear. And I really want them to transition through fear quickly to get to the life they want to have. And so, sorry, I just wanted to bring that in because I remembered that conversation this weekend. And, that's why we don't apologize at the Vixen Mastermind, because it's a place where you can be real and speak your truth and empower the other women to do the same thing. Because too many times we have to apologize for who we are when a lot of this is a gift that we've been given. And if we don't appreciate it, we know our gifts get taken away.
Mm-hmm. So I want to back up a little bit. How I met April was back in March of 2023. We did certified high performance coaching together, and with, I don't know, 100 other people. And each session they did breakout rooms, and you had 3 people in your breakout room, and the breakout room had a coach, a coachee, and an observer. This was the last day of our training, and I had norovirus, and I was in the bathroom the whole time. And yet when I went into a breakout room with you, April, there was one other person. I don't even know who the other person was. And somehow you and I had a conversation exchange, and it was just enough to go, I like this girl. Like, I really like her. And I felt a connection. And then we started following each other on Instagram. And then a few weeks ago, I sent you a message. I had this intuition that I needed to reach out to you and connect with you. And I have this joke that as little kids, you can go up to someone and go, will you be my friend? As grownups, it's it's harder to do that. And if you walk up to somebody that
Yeah.
you think is interesting, go, will you be my friend? They're like, you're a weirdo. So I asked April, can we connect? You sent me your calendar. We connected on Zoom. And I'm like, this is my way of saying, will you be my friend? And you said yes. Your answer was yes. And you offered for me to come to the mastermind with you in Park City. Can I just share a couple of the exercises that I thought that really stood out and were amazing? Okay.
Yeah.
One of them, and you can remind me what it is. It's the 7 things that you're either one or the other. What was it? The 7 what?
7 frameworks of self-perception. So it actually comes from Brenda Bouchard, who we're certified under. Yeah.
I don't remember what all 7 were. They were like you're either in fear or faith, or you're either
correct.
beating yourself down or building yourself up. And so one of them, and this is you asked me earlier, Angie, when we were in a private conversation, what was one of the breakthroughs that you had? And one of them was mimicry or mastery. And when I first looked at that, I didn't really think anything of it. And then when we started talking about it, I'm like, mimicry or mastery, that's really the difference between being authentic or inauthentic. And it's like a test. You're either in mastery and you're authentic, or you're mimicking somebody else or something else that you saw, and that would be inauthentic. That was a huge breakthrough for me. And also getting to see you be the leader in a soft, loving, yet assertive is the only word I'm coming up with. And but in a positive and a loving way. An example that okay, I have an in-person group, high performance coach people that come in, and I said, I'm going to go meet this lady, April. I'm going to go to Park City. And I said, she asks uncomfortable questions, like questions that make me feel uncomfortable. And they started laughing. They're like, thank God. I hope she asks you a lot of uncomfortable questions, because I asked them uncomfortable questions. We were in the cabana, and we were sharing private stories. And one gal was starting to share her story, and the waiter came over and brought in the food, and we started like mauling the food. And you're like, hey, there's somebody sharing here. Please pay attention and be respectful. And I thought, that's something that might cross my mind, but I don't know that I would say it. So that fear that you mentioned that you don't have, there were so many things that you said over the weekend. I'm like, I wish I had the courage to say that. And so you said that you don't have fear. Have you ever had fear, or were you just born without the fear gene? Like, what's behind that?
I don't know, but what I say in that instance is, hey, so-and-so's talking, we should honor her story. Because, here's someone pouring their heart out, and suddenly we're dipping chips, right? Like, imagine if you were that person. So yeah. So that's what I do. As you know, I have a spiritual coach and mentor, and he told me that I go straight through courage to action. Like, I just don't think about it, and it's a gift. And for me to reverse engineer so that I can help other women do that. And, as you mentioned, part of it, I have to give kudos to my parents. There were no limits in my household. I think, my dad told me, oh gosh, I can't think of the term today. By the way, I got delayed and I got home at 2 a.m. this morning.
Oh, no.
So if I lose my words, that's why. But anyway, I guess he was a male, not really a chauvinist, but kind of, until I'm the oldest. And he said, the moment you were born, my life changed, because I just wanted everything you wanted. Like, I just wanted you to have everything you wanted. And I have to say, like, growing up, that was true with my parents. I think early on, they understood I was intelligent, and I loved life, and I was going out there. And so I do have to say, we all have trauma from childhood, but one I do not have is that my parents limited me. So I would come up with all these crazy ideas, and they're just like, yes. And looking back, I'm like, my poor parents, like, they paid for me to be an exchange student to Germany. They paid for me to go to Vanderbilt. Then I went to Notre Dame. Like, it's so crazy, like, everything they did to gift me for what I wanted to do. I studied in London. I don't know. I think it's a combination of maybe my soul came into this life that way, and then being born to the right parents that didn't shut it down. Because I think I mean, when you look at children, they are fearless, right? For the most part, up until, a certain age. And it's really socialization and what they're told and what they hear. I see my niece, who's 7, is a lot like me. And so sometimes she's loud, and I was very loud as a child. And some of my pain, I remember my grandfather making like disparaging comments to me about being loud. And so I do not tolerate anyone telling her to be quiet in front of me. I'm just like, she's a child. This is her nature, right? She's not doing anything wrong. So I hope that's a gift my parents gave to me that I'm passing on.
I mean, I work with a lot of women, and fear is probably the number one thing
Yeah.
that stops people from moving forward or taking that action that they want to take. You are a great example.
I think we've been socialized to be that way. I mean, we could have a whole multi-hour talk about that, right? But really, we need women in their feminine essence with a loving relationship of God to move this earth forward. I mean, the feminine power is so strong. And I think for a very long time, feminine power has been suppressed. And that's why we apologize all the time. And that's why you're not allowed to apologize at the Vixen gathering. That's why we diminish ourselves. And one thing I say is, if you study feminine traits, which I know you're both familiar with, one is adaptability. So if you think about it, adaptability can be our superpower. It can be our kryptonite, because we can morph into something other than ourselves to please others. So you just have to be very careful how you use your feminine gifts and power.
You're right. I feel like we could do a whole show on right there.
Yeah.
I feel I know.
Yes, there's a lot. There's a lot in feminine energy. And so to step back on that, when I got divorced in 2018 after a 20-year relationship, I'm a very strong alpha female, very much ebb and flow from masculine to feminine energy. I can sit in both easily. Didn't serve me well. Served me just fine, but it didn't serve my ex-husband so much that I was masculine energy most of the time. And so I learned a lot about the difference, taking a lot of that into my new relationship. And I'm aware of when I want to step into that masculine energy. I have that urge or that need and what it does to the relationship. So having that awareness and learning about it, I thought was fascinating, because I didn't know anything about how the energy, I feel energy, but I didn't understand feminine and masculine energy to the point I do today. And so I commend you on helping other women to understand and navigate that. I too am a sister of no fear. So I get that. I've spent my whole life stepping into things that people are like, did you not see the oncoming bus? Like, yeah, but it stopped. So anyway,
no, I love it. And well, what's interesting is, oh gosh, now I'm forgetting her name. I think it's Allison Armstrong, but we were talking about her books this weekend, and she talks about how women are born with the adaptability to change their masculine and feminine, like to transition like that, whereas men are born like 80% masculine, 20% feminine, or 40-60. Like, men are much more set with those two energies, and we women can slide. And I love what you said about awareness. So I teach a small group on feminine essence, and the first step is awareness. That's 50% of the battle, right? And then learning what personally you can do to transition back and forth. And I also think being intentional about how you show up, because sometimes you might want to pull out your masculine GSD, which is get shit done energy, right? Like, and sometimes you want to, receive and be feminine. And
sometimes I pull out that card. So GSD, I love that. Yeah. I pulled out that card just recently at a really bad time, and it came back like a couple of weeks later. And it was just like, we gotta get shit done. I stood there and debated it and still did it. And I said, in the end, we got shit done. So you do, and ask for forgiveness.
So can you
later.
Slide into it in an easier way? Was this with your significant other? Yeah, that's the key. I always say start with love and then speed it along.
Go from rocket ship. So anyway, that's interesting. So you're reverse engineering you said that because you're born with that no fear gene,
Mm-hmm.
how do you go about reverse engineering that? I'm sitting here in my brain going, how could I even explain what that is for me? I'm curious.
I wish I could answer that because I'm still working it out, to be
Okay.
fully transparent. But I think a lot of it is taking action. So Becky can tell you, and I learned this somewhere, I don't know where, but most of us hesitate to take action. So when we do an exercise or when I'm coaching a client, I'm like, okay, what's your 24-hour action? Because even if it's a small step, you should do something. When you say, okay, I have this goal, I'm going to do this. Okay, well, what are you going to do the minute we get off this call? And what are you going to do in the next 24 hours to move that forward? Because the other thing is, if you look at we women in our DNA, we were the gatherers and we had to stay back while the men went to hunt, right? And so we had to be aware of everything. And so we want everything to be perfect and make sure it's in its place and we know where it is. It's in our DNA. So if we can just realize, okay, imperfect action is better than perfect action for moving things forward, I think that's a big step. And then really to understand where the fear comes from. So when I coach about how to have difficult conversations, the first thing is understanding that fear is not real. We make it up, right? It's not an actual thing. It's something we're imagining. It's something we're making up to the degree that our body feels it. So we are in full control of getting rid of it as well. So even if just sitting with your fear or knowing yourself, like I know Becky loves to hike. That's her, it keeps her sanity. So if she's in a moment of fear, I'd probably be like, go hike, right? Like you have to physically work that fear out of your body. You have to bring your mind down. So to answer, I guess intuitively, I have been teaching it to women. I just need to line it up more directly. Because I know after my difficult conversations class or boundaries class, they're usually like, oh my gosh, now I have a framework. I know how to do this. This is so much better. And it's not one size fits all. Like Becky loves hiking and Angie, it may be something totally different for you, but like what works to calm your mind down? Becky and I were taught different meditations and high performance coaching. I have personal meditations. And then what works for you to get that energy out of your body so that you're sitting with the truth and not the made up fear?
Love that.
For me, I'm so grateful. I feel like I must have done something right to attract both of you into my life.
You're kind of bookmarked right now, Becky.
Yeah, I am. I feel grateful, like super, super grateful when I hear you both say that you don't experience fear. Angie was like, yeah, I'd like to try to explain it. April, reverse engineer. I'm working on explaining it. And being in your presence, both of you, you demonstrate it. And that is almost better than actually explaining it. When I see you both
agree.
just literally getting shit done and not stopping or having imperfect action and just moving forward and doing it, like just being in your presence, April, over the weekend, even though you can't give me a formula, I saw it. I felt it. I was with you. I've been with Angie forever, and seeing her just take life by the bull by the horns and just going, let's just effing do it.
Yeah.
That you can't describe that. And so you're modeling it by example. And I mean, I walked away from this last week and like, okay, it's almost like I felt it in my body, that action.
Good.
And so now that I've felt it, I can emulate it.
Yeah. I love
And what
it.
I was going to jump in, and Becky knows me. When you said I should or I need to, or you said something about you needed to put a framework around it, my brain went to, why should you? And what's the should around that? Because I don't know that you can. And Becky, you said it perfectly, that it's about being who you are and demonstrating it and standing in that all the time. If that is who you are, we are authentically are, it will come through and it will inspire others, and they will look and, pick up on those traits. And so I don't know that you can fully transfer that knowledge in that way, like written, but I think that you can by who you are and how you show up, which
No, I
sounds
love
powerful.
And that's a huge lesson for me. And then I think also being truthful about it. I mean, Becky was there when the other participant asked me that, and she was like, "Oh, it takes at least 6 months." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And like it makes her stop and say, "Am I holding on to the story that it takes 6 months to get out of fear?" Right? Because when you hear someone say, "Oh, I don't think it takes that long," which is why it's important that we lovingly challenge each other, because we are holding on to these stories that either we've been socialized to believe, we've created, trauma has created for us, etc. That's why I love the mastermind. And Becky, you can speak to small group coaching. I love small group coaching in the mastermind because, it's not just me as the coach or me as the leader. It's all of us impacting each other by sharing our stories. And you collectively learn together, sometimes through another person's pain and sometimes through their joy and aha, right? And they're experiencing the pain to move through it. So that to me is the magic of the mastermind and the small group coaching. Now, you need a strong facilitator to keep everyone on course, but outside of that, the magic happens naturally with the group.
Speaking of the group, April, do you have openings in the group or is it full?
Oh, I do. Thanks for asking. Yeah, so I actually switched it. So it was a 1 year commitment. But right now, what I'd like to do is we do a 90-day commitment because we have a retreat every quarter. So if you join us for 90 days, you still get the full experience, small group coaching, one-on-one, and the retreat. And then, of course, at the end of the 90 days, I mean, I feel it's my job to bring enough value that you say, hey, yeah, I want to stay in this. Or for some people, they may just need 90 days. Like, I'm a quick learner. I might be done with it in 90 days, whereas other women might want to stay for longer. So I've changed it to where it's a 90-day commitment at a time, which people can stay in for years if they want to. But I think it's really nice to do it that way.
And so who is this for? Who, if the women are listening to this and like, I wonder if this is for me, what kind of women are you looking to bring in?
So our target is female entrepreneurs. We're for the most part Gen X, because we've had kind of a shared experience of growing up, like we all talked about here with the slingbacks, right? So, but yeah, mainly Gen X entrepreneurs, so female, and a lot of solopreneurs in the group, which I really love because we can help them learn to delegate, build a team, learn to let go of control, because I think for a lot of female entrepreneurs, this is like a big mountain. But if you have a small team, I'd love to, we'd love to invite you to join too. I run a small team, and my co-facilitator, Shelly, who you met, came from corporate America. I've been an entrepreneur since 2008. So I think it's really cool because she brings like the structure of corporate America and I bring like the entrepreneurial brain. And then we come in and work with the women there together. So yeah, really it's best for solopreneurs and entrepreneurs with small teams. And my goal is to get everyone to scale to at least $1 million of revenue. And then if women would like to join and they're doing more than $1 million, we'll just do a different group because I think it's different mindsets and different challenges.
Yeah. And how can they get a hold of you? We'll put your link in below.
Sounds good. Well, they can check us out at vixengathering.com. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Vixen Gathering. And in a few short weeks, there will be the Vixen Voice, our new podcast that they can
it's called the Vixen Voice.
That's
I love
cute.
it. We'll when you get that, we'll link that down below too.
Oh, awesome. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And I know Becky's going to join me. So Angie, I want to invite you to come on as a guest as well. We'll have fun.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Angie has an amazing story. I don't know what you learned about her, and I sent you her links as well. Angie has an amazing story, and so I would love for you guys to get to work together on a podcast. All right, what else would you like to share with us today before we wrap this up, April?
I don't know. I just really, the purpose, what we're focused on in Vixen right now is helping women raise their money mindset, increase their income, and own their worth while still experiencing joy, peace, and love in their lives. Because what I find with a lot of women I coach, they feel if I make more money, I have to sacrifice here, right? Very much like when my mother came for Easter and I couldn't see her because I was grinding out the hours. So really helping women to understand how they can leverage their time get into their feminine energy, and, by having personal core values, make better decisions that move them further faster. So there's so much we could talk about: feminine essence, core values, time management. I'm a time management nerd, but
So April, Angie and I did an episode on planners, and
oh,
Angie
yes.
loves the Legend Planner. So Angie, April and I are using the Brendan Burchard's planner.
Yeah,
Angie's got her Legend Planner right there.
love
We
it.
got the Brendan Burchard planner, and I'm also using the Legend, so I kind of go back and forth. April did a segment on calendar during this mastermind weekend, and I walked away with, I am learning to love my planner. I'm learning to love my calendar, and
Yay.
it's now I've color coordinated it for the week, and
Yes.
I am falling in love with my calendar. Angie's, are you going to show yours?
Angie loves it. Show us,
Oh, I love
Angie.
mine.
I don't have mine handy.
Mine.
I don't have mine
I mean,
handy either.
I live in mine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's color coordinated. I mean, it's the whole thing. I love my planner. This is where I live here.
I
So,
use Google Calendar too, and that's what I shared with them. I was like, I look and it's all this beautiful color and it means different things. So in a moment, I can tell like the rhythm of my life and am I getting enough of different things? And so I love that. So Angie, I'm going to ask you this.
mhm.
Do you have a color for joy on your calendar?
Oh, I do. I
I
do.
love
So
it.
it's
She's
actually,
good.
yeah, no, yeah, I've got, it's all color coordinated. So it actually in here, it starts with, you can see there's pinks and there's,
Yeah,
the whole thing. So the pinks, my color. So anything to do with joy, harmony, happiness, it all goes in with the pink.
that's right.
So
Mine,
yeah.
mine is pink too. Everybody was picking yellow this weekend, but mine is pink as well.
And I
I
do
love
use
it.
Google Calendar as well. So I
Yeah.
actually calendar with
Hmm.
scheduling with everyone through Google Calendar, but everything else is my stuff goes through my planner, which Becky, this segment coming up is on our planner.
Okay. Revisiting.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well,
So,
yeah.
I have one last question. So I
oh,
heard you
please.
say, April, a couple times you talked about your about core values,
Hmm.
and that's something Becky and I we haven't really done a dive into our core values.
Yeah.
So would you like to share anything on that, or
Yes, I will send you. I have a download actually. I wrote a blog on it, how I discovered mine, and I have a worksheet for it.
nice.
And I actually do a small group on core values. So I'd love to invite you all to come in. But I feel like defining your personal core values, I did it when I was working on Vixen, and mine are alignment, affection, and adventure. And so I started measuring, okay, am I getting enough of everything? Number one, just for my life. And number two, that was the original core values of Vixen because it was just me. And so it was crazy. I could see, I think I shared this with Becky. I had a girlfriend who's like total badass. Like she's amazing. Like anybody would love to have her work with them. And she really wanted to come into Vixen with me. And we had a chat and I just saw she didn't align with the core values. And like as heartbreaking as it was like, so sorry this isn't a fit. I wish you the best. I'm sure you'll find something better for you. And it was one of the easiest decisions I've made in my life, easiest difficult decisions, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so then I started using my core values for my personal decisions. And that's what I teach women to do. Which goes to time management because your calendar should reflect your values and your goals, which is why you color code, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel defining your core values helps you make better decisions, manage time better, set boundaries better, because you know what's important, and enhance your self love because you're saying, hey, this is what's important to me, April Roberts, a human being, not my significant other, not my parents, not, anyone
Not
else
your
in my life.
business.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for asking. I'm very passionate about core values and our pillars. It only comes behind time management because I don't want to hear from my clients, oh, I don't have time to do the work. So we do time management first. So I show them they have time to do the work.
Take that out of the way.
Exactly. If we have 1 second, I wanted to ask
Yeah.
Becky, what was your biggest takeaway from our weekend?
There are so many, April. If I were to
Yeah.
choose one, I mean, one, I walked away with my purpose. prior to
Awesome.
this weekend, I've done purpose exercises. I've
Mm-hmm.
done, oh, what's your purpose? Oh, what's my purpose? And it's really kind of been pulling from the sky. And so this weekend, it was so interesting how it happened, because there we were sitting.
Yeah.
It wasn't like anything had changed, nothing unique. And I got the download of my purpose. And I can't remember the exact beginning of it, but it is now, it just came to me. Be the guiding force for women over 40 to help them find their inner athlete. And
Yes.
it came to me so quickly, and I wrote it
Uh-huh.
down, and I saw that everyone else was still writing, and I had to go to the bathroom, and I went in the bathroom, and I literally sat on the toilet and I started crying. And I'm like,
Oh.
I have my purpose. Like, that's my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That's authentic. That's me being 55, 56 years old now. And, never having been athletic at all. And now
Yeah.
being at this place in my life where I feel like I'm getting younger and younger and better because I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting out there and physically being active. And so having that breakthrough was powerful.
Yeah. I love it. And I always say your biggest takeaways are those side notes. I mean, I know we were exercising our purpose, like that was part of the exercise, but like you said, it just came to you from the side, not from anything anyone did, but because you were setting aside that time to be present and really focus on you and what you wanted. So I love that. And she shared with the group and we were all like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Good. So I love how in the group you can get immediate feedback too, positive or negative.
Yeah. You've attracted the ladies that are there. You've attracted your team are phenomenal
Mm-hmm.
women. And then the women
Thank you.
were in the mastermind. They're all unique, powerful, strong, and just ready to learn and grow. It was a really powerful experience. Any
Oh,
more
well, thank
questions
you.
from you, Angie, before we wrap this up?
No, I'm impressed. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm looking forward to seeing the next phases. And Vixen Voice, what is the podcast again?
The Vixen voice.
The Vixen
Yes.
Voice. I can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Got it.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you,
Well,
April.
thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you next
Bye, y'all.
time.
Bye.